So I'll introduce the next speaker. His name is Barry, and he is an urban homesteader and biodynamic educator. Barry, you want to come on up?
Well, I may know some of you out there. Does anyone know me? No, they don't know me. Shoot. That would help. I feel like Forrest Gump up here. I was kind of roped into it. They were looking for farmers. How many are farmers out in the audience?
Home gardening?
No, not home gardening, farmers. Why didn't you come up? How many are gardeners? All right. Now, how many are gardeners with livestock, hens or even goats? Okay, a few of those. Great. We need more of those. So they couldn't find a farmer to come. You know, this is market day, and I suppose not many were able to come up. Can I raise this at all? I was told to stand tall. So it'll probably fall apart. Right? Yeah, a little higher. Okay, good, thank you. So, I myself, you know, I've been to the Iraq March. I was here in the Battle of Seattle as an NGO delegate for the Western Sustainable Agriculture Working Group, which is a very strange experience, getting indoors. And I've been down to to Sacramento in 2003 for the Ministerial and Expo on Agricultural Science and Technology, which pushed all this stuff on agriculture ministers and trade ministers around the world. Yeah? Can't really hear it. So, speak up? Oh man, louder it was, huh? Okay, I'll have to get right in there. So you couldn't hear me the whole time. Well, I've had some activist experience, but I'm, you know, not really a chanter, and I feel a little bit out of place. So what I'll try to do a little bit is channel Wendell Berry. If I were to turn to a farmer, that's who I would turn to. And right now, the first thing I would say for you is, it all turns on affection. That's the title of his talk for the Jefferson Award from the National Endowment for the Humanities last year. And you should read that essay. It's online. It all turns on affection. And in that essay, as everywhere, or many places in his work, he contrasts the industrial model and the agrarian model. And that's really an important distinction. So the industrial model is one that's found in our capitalist world and our socialist world, which has kind of faded away. It's a model of control, trying to control nature. The agrarian model is more on the biological logic and ecological logic, one of affection, one of place and living in nature. And in an interview to that award, he has the phrase, fit the farming to the farm. Fit the farming to the farm. And that really epitomizes the biodynamic ideal. The idea that you use as few inputs as possible. You take the resources of a farm and you fit the livestock, the cropping, all to those resources. You don't bring inputs from outside. You rely on the sun and the energy it brings and the cycling of enterprises in the farm itself. Now, what's prominent today is the industrial model, where you treat farming like a factory, like a manufacturing process. You bring in inputs and you have outputs that are sold as commodities. It's profit-driven. It's not health-driven. Now, you can't just take Monsanto away. Monsanto's just filling a void. The prominent model today is that industrial model. They're just an input company. The technology itself. I also happen to be a biologist. I understand the genetics well enough to know that it's beyond our control. The cytoplasm of a cell is like an ecology. You know, we can't control the ecology out in the world with glyphosate. with Roundup, and we can't control the ecology inside the cell with genetic so-called engineering or modification. We can't take it away. The technique by itself, there are techniques of smart breeding. Knowing the genomics of plants can help us to breed better. So it's a double-edged sword. But if you really know the biology, you know we can't control it. Now, if we can't just take Monsanto away, we've got to change this input model. The only way we're going to change that model is if we start to respect the farm. We start to respect the ecology of the farm, the oikos. That means the stewardship of the household, the word oikos. All of us have households, not just farmers. We need more farmers. All you young folks out there and older folks, not just support the farms that exist and buy organic products. Some organic farms are industrial model. They're practically like, a farm that uses GMO. They bring in inputs, put out outputs. We need something higher than that. To have that, we're going to need a lot more farmers, a lot more labor. We're going to need to respect labor, not just on farms, but throughout. That's the theme of Folk Life this year. And we need ourselves, who aren't going to be farmers, the few of us left, I hope, to have our own urban households, to be producers to what extent we can, so that stands in our minds as a model for how we make decisions and what we buy and what we do. We need to reclaim domesticity. That's a phrase of Shannon Hayes in her book, Radical Homemaker. So that's two things today. We've got It All Turns on Affection and Radical Homemaker by Shannon Hayes. So that our diets, our way of life, matches the farm, rather than our diet and way of life is Cokes and whatnot, and we have to have farms with GMOs to grow the corn, to make the fructose syrup. We often hear we are what we eat, but we also eat what we are. So if we are that industrial model, we'll eat that kind of food. Now, David Korten, this industrial model is based on the contemporary predominant philosophy David Korten referred to. He's an economist in his book, When Corporations Rule the World. He had a phrase that this worldview, this way of looking at the world, is an excessively partial view of reality. That's the view that Monsanto, this industrial model, is working for. We need to educate the world so that we see that there's more than that. Now, so the direction this is taking, we've had some very artistic people up here singing and telling stories. Really enjoyed that. But I'll just leave you with a joke. That's the best I can do. It's one of my favorite jokes, and I usually have to tell this, for the Swedes in the audience, I apologize, but I'm Norwegian background, and so usually, it's one of those kind of things. Sort of a Polish joke. Let's see if I can make it. I'll change it. The agrarian, they're out elk hunting. And there's an agrarian up on the ridge, and he hears a shot, and he looks down, and he sees this beautiful trophy animal fall. These hunters have just gotten this trophy elk. Now he's watching through his binoculars, and he looks down, and the industrialists run up. They've shot this animal, and they start to dress it, to take it back. And the agrarian's watching them and just admiring what a prize rack of antlers and everything. And then he notices that when they are finished dressing the animal, they start dragging it by the antlers. Well, that's the most convenient, isn't it? But as they're dragging it along, they're getting caught in all the brush here and there, and they're making terrible headway. So the agrarian feels sorry for him. Looks down and yells out and says, "Oh, what a wonderful shot, wonderful trophy animal," and just, praises them. And then he says, Yeah, you know, it'd be a little easier if you tie it behind feet with a rope, piece of rope, and then you can pull by the feet and you'll get along a lot better. It'll spread the brush, you know, in the feet, and the antlers will just shed the brush and you'll get along just well. And that's what we have, you know, today. We've got these technologies to get along faster. So there they are. Now the two industrialists, they've been pulling this elk now, and they're really making progress. They're getting along. And after a little while, one of them says to the other, you know, it's really nice, that agrarian, to give us that idea to pull by the feet, you know. And the other one stops a moment and says, yeah, but you know, we're getting farther from the truck. And that's kind of, I think, what we're doing with this Monsanto project.